responsibility breeds buy-in. If you're not responsible for anything, you're probably
That's
not
good.
bought into the vision of anything.
Yeah.
And so being responsible to a mentor and actually buying into the idea of somebody pouring into you, being responsible to the people that you're shepherding, because honestly, small group leaders are that group's pastors.
Hey, welcome to the More and Better podcast. My name is Winter, and I'm here with Joe.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about life-changing relationships.
I'm very excited for this topic, actually.
Just the two of us today.
Yeah, just us. Just
Going solo.
eye to eye. I mean, here we are.
I was trying to think of a dynamic duo.
That's us.
That's us.
Tag team partners right now.
I'm excited, though, that we are talking about life-changing relationships. I think that's almost become a Christian phrase to us. It's like life-changing relationships is something almost formal.
Right.
But really, it's just community. It's all it is being known. I love something that we do for our group leaders when we are doing those. We do yearly dinners with Pastor Darren and kind of get some vision. And one of the things that they say is for our life-changing relationships is it's a place to be fully seen, fully known, and fully loved. And anytime I hear that type of phrase, it kind of makes me want to cry.
Right. Just makes you feel warm and fuzzy
A
inside.
little bit. But the ways that we're able to do that is through prayer, scripture, and fellowship, which is what we do through groups.
Yeah.
And they provide that environment to thrive, building our faith and creating that healthy community. And that's kind of what a life-changing relationship is.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people plugged into small groups and communities that maybe they've never heard the term life-changing relationship before, but honestly, they've been in that for a little while without even realizing it. They have people around them that are growing them and sharpening them and lifting them up and encouraging them. And it's so cool, too, to see. I was thinking about this the other day, just the variety of the groups that we have to offer, because it's so cool to see younger groups that sometimes will meet on campus and use our big screens to play Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. But there's also older groups that meet and genuinely, if they have health scares or anything like that, it's their small groups that really jump in and support each other and lift each other up. And it's incredible to see how diverse it can be, but how there's just as much life-changing relationship in both of those situations. Is my favorite thing about it is just it truly is just a place to be vulnerable and to build relationships and to grow with one another. And I think that's just a very beautiful thing. It also gives me the warm and fuzzies. So
I think if someone is newer to faith, though, it can be a little intimidating. It's I don't know if you've ever had this moment, whether it's when you're coming into church or whatever, being kind of skeptical of having, even in that phrase that being fully seen, fully known, and fully loved, that is actually terrifying.
Yeah, being fully seen is scary.
Vulnerability, no thank you.
Right.
But also, yes, I absolutely need that.
Yeah, it's so scary, but it's so powerful and so life-changing.
And it's so, and it truly does, what you're saying, life-changing. It changes and impacts your life once you're able to kind of tap into that. My own personal experience, though, with kind of just the group's mentality, it was always more of a fun aspect. When I was growing up, it was a chance to hang out with your friends. And I think there's definitely that element. But the aspect of being vulnerable and kind of walking in that and being transparent with people and being, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I need help with.
Yeah.
I think of even that verse which you kind of implied it, sharpening each other. Yeah. That iron sharpens iron type of relationship was terrifying to me, just because it was I felt almost it was a way people were condemning you. But then when you experience those life-changing relationships, it's oh, people want the best for me.
Right.
We're gonna bear arms with one another. We're gonna make each other better.
Right.
And you imply that also with some of those older small groups. I've seen that even with my grandmother, who's I will not discllose her age, but she's in her 80s, I will not say which part of that, but she's been here for several years, and she has that community of people who they check in on her.
Right.
anytime that she's been in the hospital, there's been people that have written her cards, like those at her community. And though it may look different than what like a young adults small group,
Right.
or honestly, even our role changer small groups. I love seeing down from a 86-year-old to a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Like how wild is
Yeah.
that? But I think those relationships, like they're able for anyone to be able to achieve that.
Exactly. And I think it's so cool too to see, I think especially in groups that have been meeting for longer periods of time and communities that have really like built up to know each other and be there for each other, you see so much fruit from that. That encourages me as a small group leader. And I think even it encourages some of my friends to look at some of the older groups and be like, man, like there's a lot of fruitfulness from being able to walk through life and have a group that actually supports you in a community that knows you and knows what you're walking through, and not having to feel like you're walking through life like with your walls up and, you know, isolated and having to figure out everything on your own, but having a group that can see your needs and meet your needs and actually wants to be involved in your life. Like I look at some groups a little bit older than me and I'm like, that's where I want to be when I'm at that point. Like I still want to have that community. I still want to have the people around me that care enough to just pour into my life, and vice versa. I want to, you know, pour into others' lives too.
For sure. I think of how beautiful of a picture that is. I just said, I think again.
Oh, wow.
I told you this is going to be a wild ride today.
We're thinking people here on More and Better.
We're really thinking. With life-changing relationships, it is part of a journey.
Mm-hmm.
There's different levels, as even like you're saying, like I want to get to this certain space, or I want to just have that community where I'm leaning on people. Something that we kind of talk about here within our staff, just like those characteristics of life-changing relationships. And like I even read through in that vision, it's through times of prayer, reading scripture together, fellowship. Sometimes it is just being goofy and silly with one another, playing games. Like Phase 10, like those are my type of, like sign me up for that type of group. Or it's just, you know, living life when times are really hard, or also celebrating the big moments. Just being there, showing up for people. One of my favorite types of groups that I've been a part of, that I know that you and I both have been in them before, is literally just taking, like, example, Ephesians, the series that we've been in, just taking the book of Ephesians and like, let's just process this together.
Right.
Let's just read this. And like that's helping build each other's faith, but also in those moments praying for each other's needs.
Right.
And that's part of that, what we were talking about, being fully seen and loved.
For sure. And I think even too.
You said, I think.
Oh, I said, I think now. The table's turned. I know it's biblical. Just to carry each other's burdens, you know, and to rejoice with those who rejoice and to weep with those who weep. And just knowing that there's a time for both of those things. And that as you walk through life-changing relationships, you're going to walk through those seasons with people. And it builds such a foundation to be able to know that the same people I can sit at a table and play Phase 10 with and laugh and have a good time are the same people that maybe a few months ago were really, really helping me out of a dark place. I think it elevates the good times that much more, and it makes the difficult times seem that much more manageable too.
It helps to give that when your faith is low, people can help hold you up.
Right.
Or and vice versa. One of those characteristics that I was talking about, it's kind of 3 levels when it comes to life-changing relationships. There should be people that you're responsible to. So kind of like those mentors. Practically, we're all responsible to someone. Our bosses, all of us are responsible. Like we need to go like to God. Right. Like, you know,
like accountability is good for us.
We need that. It's necessary. Someone who's kind of over us. Then someone we're responsible for. Parents practically are responsible for their kids, but also for all of us in the Great Commission, we're responsible for who we're leading, who we're discipling. Jesus was calling us to the Great Commission to go and make more and better disciples, which is what this whole thing is all about. Right. Not just this podcast, but our Christian faith. Even when it comes to life-changing relationships, we should be responsible for someone and helping to cultivate those life-changing relationships. But kind of where I kind of want to stay at more is someone that you're responsible with. And kind of just want to talk a little bit about our own personal why. Like, why do we focus in our own lives to people that we're responsible with? And for me personally, it has been like, I kind of shared that earlier, but just that hesitancy for vulnerability. I think for so many times within my faith journey of being nervous about being vulnerable, even in the church, like I was a believer and was still like, absolutely not, will not be vulnerable.
Right.
I am stoic. I got it all together.
Yeah, everything's all good.
We are chill.
Yeah.
Not a care in the world. The world's on fire, but I'm fine. No one needs to worry about me, kind of thing. And really created a disengage within my faith, but also just me as a person. I feel like we're turning into a therapy session a little bit, but that's like what life-changing relationships can be. It's that place that it can be life. There was life-giving to you. And it has changed my life, being able to be vulnerable and to kind of let my guard down, like take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And that's honestly my why for why I'm responsible with people, because I know it makes me a better person.
Yeah.
But also why I'm responsible for other people, the people that I'm leading, is because I also know, like, hey, it can impact your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I know how beneficial this can be for you. I'm personally, like, I love mentoring girls who are student aged, who've seen, like, okay, we walked through similar lives. Like, let me help you.
Right.
Like, guide you in a path.
Like, you can see so much of yourself in them.
Yes.
And kind of guide them in the wisdom that maybe you didn't have at that time.
Yes. Because I wasn't being authentic. And so it's like, hey, I can speak to that and help.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you're saying, like guide them in another path. But for me, that's my why.
Yeah.
That's how I tend to operate.
My why is really similar. I got saved at 21 and came here to Harvest Time. Pretty much had the weekend experience, all that good stuff, and small groups are happening at that time. And my buddy Sean, shout out Sean, invited me to a YA small group, which you and your sister Chin were leading at Coffee Co. And it was on Thursday nights. And I remember showing up and I was shaking. I was so nervous, like so introverted. There were all these people. And I went one night and I was like, I'm hooked. Like, I got so excited for Thursdays, and it was like my favorite thing in the world during that season. Like the weekend would get there, I'd be very excited for church because like that was like my safe space to go to when the rest of the world was just falling apart. And then after the weekend, it was like, okay, when's Thursday going to get here? And that just really, really, really changed my life. Not to be corny or anything, but that was so important.
It's corny because it's true.
Yeah, that was so important for me. And just seeing, even now, several years later, like all of my best friends that like know me the best and still do life with me came from that group and that season. And so I think my why is seeing how that changed my life and knowing that that can do the same for other people. And truly like getting behind that vision. Like we don't just say this is a life-changing relationship, but we've lived that this is a life-changing relationship. That's probably my why. Like I think about that a lot. Just that season, how special those moments were. And we weren't doing anything crazy. It was sitting at a coffee shop, like reading through the Bible. Yeah.
Like it was nothing novel. Like it was, but it meant everything.
Yeah. And we were doing it together.
Yeah.
And it's just, something very special about that.
Yeah. And that's something I feel like with life-changing relationships, it doesn't have to be something grand, overly specific. It's just living life, reading the word together, praying for each other's needs. I think specifically back to even that season, seeing some of those prayers that were answered through that time. It's a beautiful picture, a great thing to look at, but that kind of leads to also like, hey, that's our why. How is that being activated? Like, a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are people who maybe have been here for a while, have matured in their faith. Maybe like what you're saying, they may never have heard of the life-changing relationship term, but they've already experienced it. Right. Kind of like, how should we be activating that in our life? Like, what should we be doing as disciples ourselves?
As disciples, I think remembering like what you were saying, the kind of three responsibles, responsible for, responsible to, and responsible with. I think responsibility breeds buy-in. If you're not responsible for anything, you're probably not bought into the vision of anything.
Yeah.
And so being responsible to a mentor and actually buying into the idea of somebody pouring into you, being responsible to the people that you're shepherding, because honestly, small group leaders are that group's pastors. Like you're doing life with them. You are diving in the word with them. You're praying with them. You're doing what a pastor and a shepherd does with this small group of people. And honestly, responsible with letting people see you too. It's very, very difficult to lead people from an inauthentic place. And so being authentic with people, letting them see you, and being in that mindset of, hey, like we're responsible with each other. We're doing this thing together. And so I think it can be intimidating for people to hear that word responsibility and be like, oh my gosh, I'm already responsible for so much, like not another thing. But I think when you take ownership of something, you start to see vision for that thing. And when you see vision for that thing, you really, really start to dive into all the possibilities and all of what it could be, all the life change that could start from these little seeds that we're planting of just doing day-to-day life together, just buying in a little bit, being intentional with each other.
I think that's huge, thinking of responsibility, but also as a buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can all have responsibilities, but if we're not carrying it, you can do it in vain. But when you have the vision in the heart of what God's called us to do, and what He's gifted us, the opportunity to experience that, you're going to go so much farther and experience that life-changing value that you can have within community.
Yeah.
When I'm thinking of just impactful stories, I think I've always been someone that's valued small groups. But as I've continued to grow and mature within my faith, it's not just that I like it, it's been crucial, a necessity part of my life. And even thinking of the different seasons of life, whether it was me being in a youth small group to leading youth students or doing young adults. I have a little bit of a different one that's a little bit older people, just kind of as the seasons, as I've grown.
Yeah.
Always having that, but seeing the consistency of God always showing up in those relationships. I think sometimes people can get discouraged when it comes to groups of feeling like it's almost like a pressure.
Right.
And so if you are leading a group, I just want to kind of take off some of that pressure, because yes, it's a responsibility, but also remember, take the pressure off yourself. It can just be authentically you.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what been also the sub theme I feel like I've been saying is that is also terrifying.
It's scary, but I think that deep fear of being authentically us is we're going to be met with judgment, and we're going to be met with people backing away from us. I think listeners would be surprised at how many times you can be authentic with somebody and you'll probably be met with, oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. That's something that we talk about in Start Here, is even a lot of times the enemy will make us think, oh, you're terrible, or oh, this is put all this pressure, and almost doubt ourselves, those insecurity thoughts, and it manifests in something so bigger. But then once you speak it, almost always someone's going to say, yeah, same.
Been there.
Yep. I get it. Right. When you're in these life-changing relationships, in groups specifically, there's so many opportunities time after time where it's you can find freedom. Even just going, oh yeah, I'm not alone.
Right. And even wisdom, somebody who's been there and says, hey, I've been in that dark spot. Let me help you.
Hey, I'm on the other side of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That can be so game-changing. And I've had the conversation, I don't know how many times, with somebody that's I think I want to be a small group leader. I think God is nudging me towards being a small group leader, but I don't know how. I just, I'm not sure if it's the right time. I kind of want to, kind of don't, that nervousness that we're talking about. And I always tell them, go for it. There's no time right now. If your thing is drinking coffee, invite people to drink coffee with you. If your thing is bowling, go bowling with somebody, just invite them into your life and see how God works that from there.
That's what's so cool about how we do small groups here is we do an open directory. It actually goes live this weekend. Groups start the next week, starting on September 24th. But even if you're wanting to start a group, there's opportunities for that. Because we do so much by interest, by season of life.
Yep.
Literally just a way to do life with other people and what you're already doing. And it's like I was saying, like I've all throughout my seasons of life, it's just been something that has been consistent in my personal life. And check out that. Like I'd say, like go check out harvesttime.net/groups. Shameless plug.
Yeah, you're smooth with that.
But look at that directory. Join Joe's small group. Join my small group. Join a group where you're like, oh, I think that this could be something for me. And even if it's a different age dynamic, that's a perfect opportunity to get those mentors that are in your life that are a little bit more seasoned. It's just a great opportunity. I want to talk about a couple other ways that we can find life-changing relationships before we wrap up. Yes, small groups is what we're saying. Like that's what our primary vehicle of experiencing those life-changing relationships here at Harvest Time. But another opportunity is by serving. We just launched Home Teams, which is all about creating this place your home. Like, hey, I am part of the home team. I'm here to serve and make this place home for other people through those home teams, whether it's guest services, production, worship, youth, world changers. There's so many opportunities. Parking team, like there's as you're giving your life and serving, you're able to build connections even through that. Yeah. Because I know sometimes it's hard to find connections. Like you were saying, that first time walking into Coffee Co. for small group, terrifying.
Right, yeah.
And so there may be people who are listening going, hey, I'm looking at this directory of all of these small groups. I don't know where I fit.
Right. I don't know a single person here.
Yes. And so that I also understand that. So whether you would feel more comfortable walking into a group of 10 at a small group or saying, hey, let me go to Grow Track where I can meet one person at a table that can help me find a place to serve, and then maybe I'll join a small group. Yeah. Whatever your path is, like I feel like we have so many opportunities where, hey, just experience, like strive to get those life-changing relationships.
Yeah. I think it's so cool too, even just seeing how we operate through groups and serving and weekend experience and everything that we do here as a church. The vision stays the same for all of it. You know, the vision is still making more and better disciples, pursuing the one, seeing life-changing relationships through every little thing that we do. Yeah. And so just getting plugged in and, again, just buying into the vision and taking those next steps, whether that's, like you said, whether that's Grow Track, whether that's start here, you know, serving, or even if you're listening and maybe your next step is just checking out a weekend experience, you know. It can be as simple as that. The vision is the same all across the board. And I think that's something very special too.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope whoever's listening to this, like you're feeling encouraged saying, hey, you know what? I have felt that nudging that this is something that is missing in my life. Hey, this is something that I know I need to be actively pursuing. Like, listen to us and heed our advice. Like, let us also like make those connections with you. I love, I actually connected with someone this past week who's been listening to the podcast, and he even said, yeah, I've been listening to the podcast and I need to take the next step. And so I actually got to meet him and start here, and even him being able to identify like, oh, he's like, I know what next steps I need to be taking. And so I just think it's a great opportunity for us just to say, let's pursue finding that community, building our faiths, letting us be fully seen and loved and known.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the tiny steps that we take consistently end up being really, really big steps. Yeah. And so take those steps, even when they're scary and it requires vulnerability and trusting God and trusting the vision of those around you. Just taking those next steps is better than standing still, being stagnant. Yeah. So.
And if I've learned anything in my own personal walk, that the times that I've been obedient, God's always met me. Yep. Whether that was through vulnerability or just taking a step, whatever that may be. Yeah. God's going to meet us right where we are. Yeah. So with all that being said, groups are starting. And I just pray that we can all just continue to find and cultivate those life-changing relationships. Truly makes all the difference. If you have any questions maybe that you didn't get answered about how you can join a group or need help finding a group, or if you want to lead a small group, kind of like what Joe was saying, maybe you've been thinking about it for a long time, give us an email over at moreandbetterpodcast@harvesttime.net. reach out to us. I'll myself would probably get back in contact with you to help you connect with Pastor Mason and get you set up on being in a group, because it's coming up. Life-changing relationships. It's happening.
I can't wait.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time.